Oh, I hear birds in the background.
I'm outside a little bit. I'm indoor and outdoor, so you may hear some background birds and chirping and all kinds of good stuff.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, we are live with our latest podcast with Paramera, and we are with John Bullard, right?
That's it. You
All
got
right.
it. Yep.
Myself and Courtney, and we're here to discuss tonight. John's been in this field for over 10 years. Actually, you've been in the field longer, right? You've just been working on one location for 10 years, too.
Right.
Um, and is uh, well versed in the paranormal area. And he is now in a documentary called The House in Between, which is available pretty much everywhere now, right?
Yeah, go to houseinbetween.com and you just click watch. It's on 26 streaming platforms. So pretty much if you have YouTube or Amazon Prime or Apple TV, Comcast, anything you have, you can watch The House in Between. You can also go to Amazon and type it in, and you can get a Blu-ray or DVD hard copy as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do that because we watched it. We rented it twice, and my wife was like, "Well, you should have just bought it." Like at that point, I'm like, "I
Well, we,
guess."
we, we appreciate it. So.
Yeah. So, um, so the cool thing about this is this house is kind of it's an ordinary house, but has extraordinary circumstances. I guess it's a fair like it was built in the '90s, very modern, etc. But what's been going on? So tell us about your background, how you got involved.
Yeah, so I predominantly did historical locations, and I've been in the field for about 12 years now. And we've gone to Villiscax Murder House, we've gone to the Winchester House, Waverly Hills Sanatorium, all the hot spots. I love history and I'm a history nut, so it's neat to see, you know, buildings that are still standing from the late 1700s or early 1800s. Because you talk about the United States, that's a long time, and a lot of stuff hasn't lasted. And we're blessed to be where we are in Mississippi because between Vicksburg, Mississippi, and Natchez, Mississippi, there's so many plantation and antebellum homes that are still standing. So it's neat to be able to have that historical side. So I didn't do a lot of private residences. We actually had some really bad experiences, me and my two investigators. So I kind of stayed away from that. And obviously, everybody thinks their house is haunted. So a lot of times you go and there's obviously a rational explanation of what's going on. But a friend of a friend reached out to me, and this house wasn't too far away from where I was. So I thought, because I knew the people, I'd go check it out.
Right.
And going in to meet Alice, I could tell that she was genuinely just scared. And I had an experience inside the house within the first hour of being in there. Which I won't go too much into detail with, but it let me know that she wasn't crazy and this house was different. I didn't know how different when I first started going, but this house is pretty much it's always evolving. It's like a puzzle. I always tell people, like, whenever I find a piece of the puzzle, then like three more pieces go missing. So like you answer a question and then like three or four more are open, and then just kind of keeps evolving because I have a very short term attention span. I get bored very easily.
Right.
That's why I do a lot of new locations. But this location, doing it over a decade now, it's just you never know what you're going to get when you go inside the house because it's always evolving. The energy's different. It's never just your same thing that you go into. So, and again, like you said, this house is not your Adams family house. This is not like your cool, like, 4-story mansion. It's a beautiful house. It's definitely unique. It's got the A-frame. It's a red house, but she built it in the 90s and she built it for her family. So, this is where she wanted to raise her family. And from the day she started building and construction, she had things happening. So, it escalated to a point where she had to reach out to somebody. And at first she didn't, because we are in the Bible Belt. We're in the South. And when you start talking about your house being haunted, people think you're crazy. So.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah. So you talk about how you started paranormal at a pretty young age, like when it started like happening to you. And then you started doing several different investigations at several different places, or they've just like happened to you at several different places. Among these places, where do you think like the most interesting occurrences have happened?
Most interesting occurrences. That is a good question. I would say one of my favorite places and the place I hate the most, so it's like kind of a double-edged sword, is Villisca Axe Murder House, so Villisca, Iowa. So the story there is very interesting. I'm sure you guys know the backstory about that house, but if you don't, definitely go research it. I believe I was told one time or read that took the Titanic off the front page. That's how big that story was back in the day. But the energy that I felt in that house, there's not many places that I'm just so freaked out I won't go, but I would prefer not to go back to Villisca. I just felt so the anxiety in that house was overwhelming. I've never had a night terror, but we did fall asleep in that house, and I woke up screaming. It's not a place that I wanted to be inside. I would be in there for 2 hours, 3 hours, and I couldn't stay in there. It was December. I don't know why we're stupid to go to Iowa in December. That was not smart. It was freezing cold, but I slept in the car, and we didn't stay in the house the rest of the night. I mean, that the energy in that place was just so heavy, and just I didn't enjoy it. And like when I left the last couple of days after that, I just didn't feel like myself. I love the paranormal in the field and documenting evidence, but like if it affects you to that level, I mean, it makes you rethink doing the whole field. So that was not a fun place to me, and maybe I just had a connection with the location, but that was one that will always stand out to me just because after I left there, and I've gotten comfortable going to locations, I get excited for new locations. I don't want to experience stuff,
Right.
But after that, that was too much. It was a little much. So Villisca is, I know it's popular. People love it, and maybe they don't have the same experience. But when we went, that was very overwhelming.
Right, and that can happen too. So if you are in the paranormal, right? So have you ever been like physically touched by a ghost? Because I know a lot of people say that they've been scratched or like pushed or shoved by some being, but have you ever experienced any of these things?
Very rare. So I would say in my 12 plus years in the field, I could say probably 4 different times, and that's logging a lot of hours, a lot of locations. 2 of them, and I can talk about it because this is pre-documentary stuff with the house in between. But I have had 2 experiences in this house for the documentary. Nothing's been like negative, and that's a whole nother topic too. Is you're talking about like a demon and this, that, and the other. That's a whole subtopic. But I do believe sometimes when something makes contact with you, it's not necessarily people trying to hurt you. Maybe they are trying to communicate with you and get your attention, but maybe they're having, maybe it's a surge of energy and it's a little bit too much. So I don't think that just because you're touched or something, or if you do have an imprint, that it's just automatically negative.
Right. Usually they're just trying to like say, hi, we're here, like, just like give you like a little thing like, hey, like just letting you know, like we're in this house with you. You've been trying to communicate with us, like, hello. It doesn't have to be bad. It's not like they're saying, get the hell out of my house or anything, but
right, and that can happen. And cool story. So this place is called the Decent Home, which is in Ellisville, Mississippi, which if you've heard the movie The Free State of Jones, they had Matthew McConaughey in it. It's Jones County. This is where this house is. This house is really cool. They have actually by the fireplace, there's like a board you can push in and pops out. They used to hide runaway slaves behind the fireplace. Really cool house. But there's a room, they call it the bad room there, and there's a dominant male spirit there that's called women very negative things. So myself and an investigator was in this room. I was sitting in a corner in the chair, and I was being that the badass guy trying to be all big and bad and saying, because daughters of the American Revolution own the house now. So it's women who took over the house and they're renovating it and all this stuff. So I was being smart and I said, how do you feel about women taking over your house? They're changing it, doing whatever they want to. Not the smartest. And it sounds crazy, but I got a shove to the back of my head. It's the only time this has ever happened, but it was enough to push me off. And that audio is interesting as well. We definitely we stood up, and my camera guy he was out the room before me. I'm like, what the hell? Because he didn't know what happened. Like my body just like went forward. It was crazy. But that's one standout memory, and that was me provoking, which I don't do a lot. But I didn't think that was obviously going to happen. But that was very interesting, and that's an active, very neat house.
Yeah. So I guess one of the other questions I have is, so you feel like in the house in between that you kind of teach the spirits to communicate. Do you usually feel like you're doing that when you go into like such as like other places you've investigated?
I would say no, because I hadn't spent enough time there.
Okay.
And most of the locations I've gone to now, I've gone back to several locations multiple times, and obviously, I think if you're doing an investigation, you obviously have to do your back history. You got to go several times, and try to log and try to get some consistency. Whether it's vocal tones, whether it's things that are happening, can it happen on command? Is it intelligent? Is it residual? So I think just going to one place. Now, if you're like the Winchester House, I live in Mississippi, and that's over on the West Coast, so I can't go pop over there every Saturday,
Right.
But the local places here, I think if you want to really do like a scientific / paranormal investigation, you do need to go over and over and try to get some consistency and relevance. So no, but this house definitely. So it's just logging this many years on and off. And look, there's been 6 months where I don't go, but then I'll get back on it, and then there's times where I just deep dive it. So it's been back and forth. But again, it's so consistent, and like the light in the house, which is the chandelier. I won't go into too much detail, but that happened by accident. And once I realized that could be manipulated, we focused on it. Once I realized something else could happen, we focused on it. So it's interesting that when we directly go in and try to communicate, it happens. A lot of times, if we're not at the house, because we have it wired up obviously all the time, nothing happens. Every now and then it will, but the big responses is if we're in the house trying to directly communicate. And the direct responses that we've gotten over the years is incredible. I mean, I just don't know how to explain it besides we are teaching the spirits, because it's a communication back and forth. And once we train them to do something, it's like you teach your dog how to do the little handshake thing. He knows how to do it. I know that's a weird analogy, but I mean, it's pretty much the same thing was going on in the house. I've just never experienced anything like it. And I know how crazy it must sound, but at the same time, is it? Because we have it documented.
So another question I have is, earlier you talked about trigger objects. So is there like a specific trigger object that you find yourself using like more than others specifically?
It depends on the location, and you ask a question, so I like you. But specifically, why I use balls and baseballs and heavier objects is because obviously, again, a baseball is heavy, so it's not like your little kickball that you can move and manipulate, and it's got weight to it. So
Yeah.
if you set that on a level place, that even if you pound it, knock it, hit it, it shouldn't move and manipulate. Then that's something. And the other reason that I like to use a baseball is because it has red stitching on both sides. So actually, and this is interesting too, if an object is manipulated with the stitching, you can kind of watch it on a camera and zoom in, and you can kind of see the object move and twist before it moves off. So that's why I like the design on the baseball. So the baseball is one of my go-to trigger objects.
So you've talked a little bit about like the places you've been. So what are some of the specific things? Because I know you talked about like shadow figures and orbs. But like, what are some of like other like specific things that you've seen? Like, or maybe there was like a specific incident that you found in like other places. So say you saw like a mist, did that like really stand out to you in one place?
Yeah, there's a place in Meridian, Mississippi, and again, you can tell I do a lot of local Mississippi locations, and I like trying to find old antebellum homes that's got stories behind them, and maybe that we don't know if they are haunted or not. We don't know. We've gone into locations. We've been the first investigators in a lot of locations, but it's neat because and some obviously are not haunted. We don't get any activity, but sometimes we stumble on something that's got a lot of activity, and we're like, hey, did you know your place was haunted? And the owners didn't tell us before, and they're like, yeah, 100%, we just didn't want to say anything to you. We just want to see it. We wanted to see if it would correlate to what you captured. And it's cool because a lot of times there's 2 or 3 things that have happened that are like spot on, like they even wrote down with a date and showed us exactly what we got, which matches what they have, and that's like mind-blowing. Like, that's really cool. But Mary Hope Mansion, if you Google it later on, check it out. It's a big, beautiful plantation home. And there's actually an old house that's on the land as well that was picked up and moved. It was one of the first elevators in Mississippi. He was a prominent banker back in the day that the house is on. So there's 2 houses on one location. But Mary Hope Mansion, there's 2 or 3 investigations there where our equipment failed, And then we had shadow figures. We had high heels walking down the stairwell. There was just so much activity in this place. It was just kind of overwhelming. Like, you get excited when you get one thing during a long investigation. You're fired up about it. And, you know, you can go to 5, 6, 10 locations and you get nothing. That happens because we can't predict it. You know, if I could tell you, all right, female apparition is going to walk down the stairs at 9:30, we'd all be millionaires, right? And we're working on that. But this location was just so active one night where we caught a female silhouette on the wall, and we were sitting in one of the sitting rooms, and it was only two of us, and it just sounded like high heels walking down the hall. I was waiting for somebody to turn the corner, and nobody was there. We had doors come open. We had 3 or 4 pieces of equipment just totally die. I had a camera, which is an expensive one. I was pissed off about this. It like fried. It was like such a wacky night, but that's just one of the locations that I remember. It was just so much. But shadow figures, when I was little, I remember seeing shadow figures. As I've gotten older, I've only experienced 2 locations where I could actually visually see a shadow figure. This place being one of them. But Mary Hope Mansion in Meridian, Mississippi, that was the other one where we caught it 3 separate times.
Alrighty. So it seems like you get a lot of like shadow figures, but as you gotten older, it kind of like started to decrease a little bit.
Yep. I think I'm getting old. I can't see anything anymore.
Can't see anything. I feel you there, man. So you guys have all like the camera set up right, and you eventually had in the movie, The House in Between, you guys had all the REM pods go off at the same time, right? What was just going through your mind when that happened?
Great question again, which leads me into a cool story. So, you know, whenever you think about ghost hunters or ghost adventurers, Ghost Nation, whatever you talk about, and I've worked with Ghost Adventures a few times, and it's neat to see the production, right? But they log a lot of time and a lot of hours in some of these locations. You know, they're there filming for multiple days, if not a full week, right? And they're packing all that into 45 minutes. Well, right. Kendall and Steve are not from Mississippi. Obviously, they had to travel down, and our budget was very tight because this isn't a big production. This is a documentary that we all got together and we produced and put together ourselves. So the small batch of time that they had inside the house, this is crazy. You've seen the end of the documentary, and I won't say anything about it. But for that to happen with them there is like the paranormal Powerball. That's what I call it, because it's just crazy. And we only had one night to investigate in a very short span of time. So it's one of those things. I'm inside the house like, please God, work for me, you know. And I know that sounds crazy, but like this house is always evolving. And I may sound crazy saying this, I feel like the house, the entities inside this house knew how important this was, and they worked for us. Because for that to happen is really dramatic, as you know. And those were in 3 different rooms. And it started and then it didn't stop. And again, there's more bonus footage of that you don't see. But it was very, very exciting and a blessing and very interesting to see that happen because, you know, you have people in there, we're ready to go, you light it up, and you can't make things happen. So for that to react right when we need it to do is amazing.
So you've been going on here since you were a teenager. Did you have like a specific group of people that like you went with, or like how did you get that group of people to like come along with you?
So great question again. So I do have a branded group that I created way back. And again, it's the marketing mindset because I needed to create a brand and somewhere to put my evidence. And my goal, again, was to make it clear, cut, easy to click, go, have a location. Each location has its page. It's got video, it's got audio, it's got descriptions, so you can go check it out. And, you know, most people are like, oh, that's cool, then move on. They don't realize the dedication and the hard work that my 5 clips took me like 14 hours to produce and put for you, so you're welcome. But I had 2 of my good friends who were with me for a long time. They were not into the paranormal. One person was actually really big into history, so I used her to research history. She was kind of my historian because I like history, but I don't like to read. So she would make bullet points for me. She would have the important stuff for me. And then my other guy, I really had him work the tech stuff out, and I knew a lot about the paranormal gadgets and gear, but he would be in charge of setting all that up and doing that, and I would just kind of map out the night. So they came just out of fun. They were friends, and they actually started experiencing stuff as well. So then they kind of got hooked into it too. So I tell you what, back in the day, a few years ago, when I was really starting to get into it, we would travel all over the country and do locations. Those were some great years and great times because it's all about the road trips and the memories and meeting these people that own these locations and finding the history and seeing what you can kind of get out of the site that you go to, and then driving back, talking about everything, and actually sitting down and doing the audio review, the video review, and actually capturing something. It's such a fun field. It's such a memorable thing. But yeah, I had two people that have been with me for 9 years or so. They don't do it anymore. One person moved off, and everybody gets lives and grows up. But I reached out to them, and they were implemental in this house, and they've done stuff with me in this house, and they were so excited to see the success of the documentary, and they're so proud to be a part of me and attached to it. So it's really fun to see.
Well, we really do appreciate it. We appreciate you coming on and talking to us and talking about House in Between. Before you go, I'd really, would love to know your website where people can come see you, and then where they can go again to see the House in Between.
Sure, for sure. So Facebook, I really don't promote my personal paranormal anymore.
Sure.
But John Bullard at Facebook, you can check me out there, add me as a friend, and if you got any questions, definitely reach out to me. I love fan interaction and talking to people and having open conversations. I never think you get too big to have a conversation with anybody. That's how we gain knowledge, and we put our ideas and thoughts together, and you push forward. But the House in Between, you can go to thehouseinbetween.com. Click watch. It's got all 26 streaming platforms. We just put out an awesome t-shirt today that's got this house on it right there. I got to buy me one. So Kendall won't give me one for free. I got to buy it myself, but but yeah, we got merch there. Go check it out. And definitely you can pre-order it. Or not pre-order. You can rent it or buy it, but everybody needs to go watch this. I think it has just a whole full spectrum paranormal science, human interest. So I think whether you're into the paranormal or not, I think you'll really like this story. And documentaries are a hot thing right now, Tiger King, all that good stuff. But this is a whole nother genre. But I think people can relate to this and see the authenticity of what we put into this. And to be unique in 2020 is hard to do, but I think we pulled it off with this documentary.
100%. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. Well, I appreciate it, and we will let you go and get back to your night. I know it's what is it going to be like 9 o'clock for you? So
almost 9 o'clock, almost bedtime.
Yeah. So you need to get your sleep, and we will talk again here in the near future.
All right. Thank y'all so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Paramare signing off.
All right. Have a great one.